Today's project is cross-polarization. So I'm going to utilize two different polarizing filters and have a subject in between that and let those polarizing filters limit the light that is shown in the subject, and you're going to get some really stunning rainbow effect images. So let's kind of break this down. First off, polarizing filters are often used in landscape and product photography because they reduce glare or reflections. So polarizing filters themselves limit light based on a certain direction that's entering the camera. Therefore, you minimize the glare and reflections that you might see, like on water or on windows in a street scene or on products for product photography. So I have a polarizing filter, a circular polarizing filter right here on the end of my lens. And the rest of this setup here is really pretty simple. So let me talk you through all the items we need, and then I'll take a few pictures so you can see the results. All right, so first off, I have a light table. This light table was purchased online. They're quick and easy to come by. It's powered by a separate power bank. I do have it up at its highest power just so I get the most light possible. First step I want to do with the light table is I want to make sure it's clean. So I'm going to dust it off. Because I am also using a macro lens, although you could use a long lens for this project, but I'm using a macro lens, and any dirt and dust really shows up quickly with a macro environment. So I would like to avoid using Photoshop as much as possible, or Lightroom, to clean some of that up. The next step is I need to use a piece of polarizing film. So this film is purchased, you can get big squares from photo companies, or I got these smaller squares from a children's science activity website. And so I got several different sheets. It did come with a protective plastic coating that I had to peel away, so that way I had just the film I'd be shooting through. But just like the light table, I want to make sure I get any dust and dirt off of that. Saw a little piece of dust show up. There we go. So I'm going to set that down on top of the light table. Because mine actually has a slight curve to it, it's not completely flat, I have these two bolts that I'm going to set down just to weigh down the film so I don't have any gaps, and that way it will increase my depth of field and make a sharper image as well. So here is the setup. Now when it comes to camera, I am using a 105mm macro lens. I have my circular polarizing filter on. My settings are kind of based on ambient light. Because the image is very static, I can use slower shutter speeds, even though I prefer not to. So I'm actually at 1/50th of a second right now. My ISO is about 250, and aperture is f4. Sometimes I'll stop down to 5.6 or f8 and then increase light in some other form as needed based on the depth of the subject I'm shooting. And then I like to use a shutter release just because that makes things quick and easy for me to shoot. So the subjects, any cheap plastic item works. So I love to use utensils. I can get some really creative photos out of different cheap plastic utensils. So I'm going to start off with this knife here. And as soon as I set it on the polarizing film, if I look closely at it, I can see the slightest hint of a rainbow across the plastic. And that's what's going to be really magnified when we rotate our polarizing filter. So it's really kind of exciting. If you're looking close, you'll actually see the rainbow effect that you're going to get in the finished product. So let's switch over to the camera now. So I'm going to position the knife a little better in the frame. I like to use autofocus. However, if you're a manual focus person, not a problem. Go ahead and shoot in manual focus. I did line up my focusing point to be right along the edge of the knife. If the camera doesn't find focus, then I have no problems using manual focus. Now the next step is I need to rotate my polarizing filter. And ideally, I want the black background because then I'm going to get the most reaction with my polarizing filters, and I'm going to get the best color. So take that photo, and the more you rotate the product that you're shooting, you'll see that rainbow effect will change because it's all about angle of light. So you'll see sometimes more reds and blues, other times more oranges and yellows. So I encourage you to rotate things around a little bit, or even rotate the whole whiteboard or light board some, and then you'll see a completely different color set show up. And not only can you photograph utensils, pretty much anything that's cheap plastic will work. So I've also photographed Petri dishes. This is the base to a champagne flute from a dollar store. Some inexpensive bowls. I've even used plastic wrap and made some fun abstracts out of it. Now when you go to, after you've downloaded, you might want to do some post-production. As much as you clean the surface, many times these plastic items can be a little bit staticky. Here's a close-up view looking at the light table with the film, all of the different plastic items. And then as you look through the back of the camera, when you rotate the polarizing filter, you can see the difference in the white versus the black background. Let's take a look at some sample images here. I started off with the utensils, and you can see based on the different angles, you'll see different colors of the rainbow. This next image are two forks intertwined together. And then I switch over to plastic wrap, just crumple it up and lay it flat on the light table. And then there's several images utilizing Petri dishes or the base of the champagne flute, anything that I could create different patterns with. And I hope you enjoyed this project and you give it a try.